Hello, welcome back. In this session we are going to create a procedure, and within that procedure we are going to use cursors and also the dynamic SQL. So the purpose of this stored procedure is, so I'm going to create a schema here and make the schema as a default and randomly creating some tables. So these are just dummy tables, and once those tables are created, so the procedure, when I call this procedure, that procedure should go to that schema and check all the tables and delete all those tables and clean the procedure, clean the schema and make it empty. So that's the requirement of this procedure. So let's see how it's going to work. And we are going to use cursor as well as dynamic SQL in this stored procedure. So I'm going to create a schema name called test, and schema, I'm making the schema as a default here. So I'm going to create 4 simple dummy tables. So you know, right, so we can see the list of tables in the schema by using this table called sys.tables. So in this table, if you provide the schema name, then it will give the list of tables exist in that schema. So we have 4 tables: my row table, first table, my table, test table, all those dummy tables. Okay, so now we are going to create the procedure. So procedure name, I made it as cleanup, and for the procedure obviously we have to give the input parameter. Input parameter is the schema name, right? So ex means, I always go with the ex means export. So export parameter, like in ABAP we use export import parameters like that. Export schema name, and the schema name will be data type of varchar. Let's go with the 10. So whether output parameter is required or not, we'll see. Okay, for now input parameter is required. From that input parameter we are going to pass the schema name test. So everything same, the SQL stored procedure header. So in the begin, first let's declare a variable. Declare tab and varchar of 10. So what this variable is going to do is, it will keep the latest table name, like from the SQL result. Okay, instead of discussing now, let's go to the procedure, then you will understand why that variable is required. Okay, now the requirement is to create to dynamically delete the tables which are in the test schema, right? So for that I'm going to declare a cursor. Remember, using the cursors and dynamic SQL is not a good practice, but many students requested. I haven't covered the cursors and dynamic SQL in my previous course. That's why I made a scenario here to use the cursors and dynamic SQL. Most of the common requirement for the cursors and dynamic SQL is for the DBA, database administration. So only those DBAs use these cursors and dynamic SQL frequently, but not by the developers. So now we are going to declare a cursor variable. Declare, this is the standard statement, declare cursor, and you name it any name. My cursor, I'll say simple, my cursor for, and this cursor is for any select statement. Select table name from, similar to the above one. Okay, so instead of writing again, I'll use this. Select table name from sys.tables, where schema name is equal to, instead of test we are going to use the parameter, input parameter, which is ex underscore schema. Okay, so now we declared a cursor. So that is the cursor declaration. Now once the cursor is declared, we can call that cursor. So what cursor do? It will go record by record from the table. So now all the data so this cursor, once we declare cursor, this statement will bring all 4 records. So each table will be one record in that result set, right? So the cursor will go row by row, my row table, first table, like one by one. So to call that one by one row execution, we will use for statement, for loop, for current row. So anything you can name it here, current row as my cursor, so which we declared above, do. So this is similar to the regular scripting language like in Python. So the for loop is from my cursor, for each row we are going to execute the following statement, and let's end the for loop. So for and for, and in between you can write any statement that will execute for each row from the result set of the cursor. So here I'm going to use the dynamic SQL. So let's say this is a dynamic SQL we are going to declare here. So dynamic SQL execute immediate, and now you can pass the statement. So this execute immediate will execute the statement drop table, and I'm going to use the concatenation here, and the table name will be in my cursor, right? So the current row holds the table name, the first table name here. So that is why I'm going to use upper or lowercase, doesn't matter, current row dot, and what we are when we are selecting the data, we are giving the field name as table name right here. So table name. So from the current row we need a table name, table underscore name. That's it. So for each row, this execute immediate statement will run this statement. Our table drop statement is drop table and table name, right? So similar to that, drop table and table name will come from this current row variable of the for loop, and the column value is table name. So that is how it will work. Okay, so now let's create the procedure. Okay, success. So now before executing that procedure, let me check the data. So we have 4 records. Now I'm going to call, where is the test schema? Here, and tables. We have 4 tables. Now I'm going to call our procedure, the cleanup procedure. And for the cleanup procedure, input parameter is schema name. So we are going to give test. Done. So now if I run this statement, it will be blank, and even if I refresh here, it will be blank. Good, right? So now again let's create these 4 tables again, and once our procedure is done, if we get some message, then it will be good. So I think that this variable we haven't used anywhere, right? So I think this is not required. This is just a customization. If you don't want to use, it's not required. Select count star into I'll say message from sys dot tables, where schema underscore name is equal to ex underscore schema. So once the procedure, once this for loop is done, then check the count star from this sys dot tables into this variable. So that variable is output parameter, out msg and since it is a numerical value, I'll go with the integer. Okay, let me drop this procedure and check whether the record tables are exist or not. We have tables now, and let's recreate this procedure. Okay, invalid table name, could not find table view table in schema sys. Okay, this is tables. Done. Okay, now let's call the procedure again. Okay, now we have output parameter. So since we are not passing any value to the output parameter, use the null value. Good. So we got 0. So 0 means we don't have any tables in the test schema. So even if we refresh here, it will not show any tables. Good. So that is how we can use the cursors and dynamic SQL. And I want to show you one thing here. So if you see here, when I call this statement, it's showing not recommended feature. DDL statement is used in SQL, dynamic SQL. So the dynamic SQL here, the DDL, data definition language. So the drop statement comes under DDL. So we are using the DDL within the dynamic SQL command, so which is not a recommended feature. So just remember that. So that's why every time I'm saying like cursors are not a good practice to go, but yeah, obviously it is good to know what cursors do and what dynamic SQL is. So that's all for this session. See you in the next session. Until then, happy learning. Bye.